Hey everybody, it's the OMAD Dad. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, a channel that is dedicated to living the OMAD lifestyle or eating one meal a day. Well, today I want to weigh in on junk food while on your OMAD plan. No matter where you go, it seems like junk food is just so readily available. I mean, it's at every gas station, it's at every grocery store, every fast food joint. It's usually lurking in your company office somewhere. In a vending machine, you name it, you can find junk food, and that also kind of links into snacking and the whole snack craze that's been going in this country for the past 15-20 years. I did a video on that on my channel. Be sure to check that out on my thoughts on that. But today I want to weigh in about junk food and should it be in your OMAD plan or should you just totally avoid it? I really believe that you're going to eat the foods that are around you. That's just how we are. And I think one of the great things about OMAD is that we don't have to deny ourselves any particular group of foods. We don't have to eliminate them. The exception to this being if you have, say, celiac disease, then you by nature have to eliminate gluten, or you have some other metabolic disease, for example, that you may have to eliminate a food group or if you're allergic to it. But if all of that, barring that aside, if you're not allergic, if you have none of those issues, then there's no reason why you can't consume this stuff, but consume so within a way of moderation. And OMAD is a very natural, fixed way of making sure that we don't go overboard and we just consume enough of what we need on a daily basis. And it gives us the control back. That's why it works so well. Now, you're probably thinking in this video that I'm going to advocate that you completely eliminate all junk food, which, to be clear, let's define it as mostly things containing lots of sugar, highly processed carbohydrates. You know what junk food is: chips, fries, cakes, cookies, ice creams, mainly desserts, but not just necessarily desserts, also savory items as well. And you're probably thinking I'm going to advocate you completely get rid of it on this plan. That's not it at all. What I recommend is that if you do have these treats once in a while, is you be smart about it. Now, as a general rule, and you don't have to be exactly strict to this on every single day, but as a general rule, I try not to let any junk food that I'm going to have that fits in that category, I try to make sure that I don't have it be any more than 10 to 15% of my total calories for the day, or 10 to 15% of my plate, if those of you who are following the OPAD variation that I talked about in a previous video. All right, so as an example, if I'm eating 2,000 calories to maintain my weight, that would mean that I would be able to have a 200 calorie dessert. That would be about my limit. It doesn't mean that I get 2,200 calories. It just means that of my 2,000 calories, 200 could be used, up to 200 or so, can be used for a dessert if I so choose, or maybe something like, say, buttery popcorn, which really isn't savory, is more savory than sweet, but sometimes I want that for a treat as well. The reason for this is that I again, you don't want to go overboard and consume junk. If you can eat junk on the OMAD plan, and you can have junk food, and mostly junk, and you'll probably lose weight, but again, you're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel terrible. So, but at the same time, life is too short, and I knew a long time ago that and especially what attracted me to OMAD is that I didn't want to live life like a monk. We all have slight vices, and yes, it's, you want to continue on a path where you gradually eat healthier foods, make better food choices, and that's perfect and that's great. But every once in a while, I like to enjoy some of life's special treats. I like candy, and I like certain candies. I like certain cookies and ice cream, and I like to have different cakes. I mean, I'm a chef, so I like to bake as well, other than just doing savory cooking. I do like popcorn, potato chips, and things like that. So when it comes to this, I've got a couple of rules. One I've already talked about. I try to make sure it doesn't consume any more than 10% of my total calories or 10% of my plate. That's kind of a really good general rule. And when you think about it, they usually, let's say, take potato chips for example. You always find in the grocery store these multi-packs of the 100-calorie potato chips or 100-calorie pretzels or something like that. So if you allow yourself one or maybe even 2 bags of those along with your meal, at least you're ahead of the game. You can count and you have an idea of what you're consuming instead of just kind of grabbing into the bag and just grabbing a handful of this or just grabbing, sweets or something off of the shelf and just hoping for the best. Now, it's not going to give you much room to play with. I mean, after all, I think a Snickers bar is around 280 calories. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to go off of memory. So that means almost 300 calories in that little Snickers bar, which is only about that big. So it's not going to be much. But at the end, if you focus on eating your regular meal first, make some really good choices every day, still enjoying what you like, but focus on having the best that you can for food choices every day. That little sweet treat at the end is all you're going to need, and you're going to be full by that time anyway. Another rule that I have is I've just started doing this, and I get my kids involved and my wife too, is if I want a certain type of junk food, I have to make it myself. And this is pretty interesting. As I said before, it's just so easy to go to the store and buy, let's say, a bag of Oreos, and they're almost always on sale, and they're very cheap. Even if they're not on sale, what are they, a couple bucks, and you get probably 100 or so Oreos in a big pack. And I remember when I was overweight, I could kill half a bag of Oreos, maybe even more, in one sitting without even realize what I'm doing. And the reason for that is because when you allow these big corporations to make your junk food and you outsource your cooking to them, they're going to use the cheapest possible ingredients. That's why those Oreos are so cheap. They use the cheapest possible ingredients, and as a result, they taste like nothing. It's like air. It's lightly flavored air, but with a lot of calories, of course. And so when you make cookies, for example, from scratch with real butter and real flour and eggs and everything, it has a richness to it. Like when I make chocolate chip cookies, if I eat 2 average-sized chocolate chip cookies that I've made homemade from scratch, I'm like filled to the brim. I'm like, whoa, it's like overkill for me. I'm using real sugar, I'm using real ingredients, and the richness from the butter and the eggs, like using these real natural foods, satisfies your palate and it fills you up. I could never eat 15 homemade chocolate chip cookies at a time. I could kill 25 Oreos like nothing. So that's something to consider too. And by me making it from scratch, now I usually, when I make our junk food, we like to pick it out midweek. We'll think about what we might want for the weekend. Maybe we'll see something in a magazine that we subscribe to or online on Facebook, or we just happen to think of something and say, oh geez, I haven't had a pie in a long time. Why don't we make a pie? And my wife and I will decide. I get my 2-year-old daughter to do what she can to help out. She loves helping and getting messy, making things. And if you guys at home have kids and have children, get them involved in making this stuff. Find some recipes that you try, even if you don't like it. That's okay. Move on to the next one. Try something different. And kids will love to get messy. They love to help out and learn, and so that they can see where this stuff comes from, that it has to get made. So getting back to it, I will bake on Sunday, sometimes Mondays, because I have Sundays and Mondays off from the restaurant where I work. And whatever we make, that's it. And when it's gone, it's gone. Now, because I follow that simple rule, I usually have enough for myself to last at least a few days into the middle of the week, and my wife can have some, my kids can have a little bit too if they like what we pick. But then when it's gone, that's it. I don't run to the store and buy Oreos. I don't make more junk food in the middle of the week. If I want something sweet, then I'll pick up like some bananas or an apple or something like that to have with my meal. and those are very low in calories anyway, so you could have a couple of bananas and not even come close to, really fill you up and not even come close to the 10% of your total calories for the day. So that's what I've been doing. It's been quite successful, and I'll tell you, you develop new traditions this way. I've heard this is kind of a tradition that's been going around in France for a little bit. I've never been there, so don't quote me. I'm only going by secondhand information. But you get the family involved, and then you find things that you really, really like, and then they become these really great memories. And then you involve everybody in there. You're standing, you're moving around the kitchen. You have to go to the grocery store and shop for it. It's planned, it's thought out, and it makes the treat more special because you're involved in every single step of the process. And when it comes to, let's say that it involves butter, you can choose what butter you want. You can pick which flour you want. A lot of these companies use a bleached flour. I always buy unbleached flour at home. Little thing, because I don't know about you, but I don't particularly like to consume things with bleach. But this also can apply to things like, say, bread. For those of you that are watching your carbohydrates, I mean, I don't recommend on this channel, I don't say you have to be keto or go on a low-carb diet, but that you should be smart about the amount of carbohydrates you have, just like the amount of fat and the amount of protein and the amount of fiber and everything else. So often what I'll do is if I want a burger roll, I make my own burger rolls. If I want bread, like sandwich loaf, for maybe I want to do grinders one night, I'll make my own grinders. Pizza, I'll often cook that at home. I have a nice pizza stone in my oven, and I make the dough from scratch. It's incredibly cheap. It's really flavorful. You have, especially with bread, you usually only have 4 ingredients: flour, water, salt, and yeast. And it's just so much more rewarding. Now, yeah, cooking for yourself, cooking at home, takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of equipment, and some patience. But there's a lot of junk food and different things out there that you can make for yourself as a treat that aren't too involved and aren't too complicated. For example, most cookie recipes can be made in about 10-15 minutes, and they take about 10 minutes to bake a cookie. Very, very simple. Kids love helping out, as I've said before. So this is just something to consider. I have these natural limits that I've adopted since being on this plan because it's just so overwhelming to go into a store and see all of the junk food laid out. I mean, I don't know how many times when I was at my heaviest, when I would just be grocery shopping or I'd go somewhere and I'd see a Snickers bar and I just had to have it. And I will say that Snickers is one thing that I don't make myself. It's not something that I can really replicate all that well, in my opinion. But they are a very rare special treat. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of times in a year that I'll have Snickers. Mostly because I really do crave some of the homemade desserts that you can make fairly cheaply and with ease by doing it at home. And my wife even got me a kind of a small ice cream maker at home. So when we want ice cream, we make it at home. And I'll tell you, it comes out and it tastes so much better than any premium ice cream you could ever buy at the store. Some of these desserts are a little bit more expensive. I mean, as I said before, these big corporations are buying in bulk in a way that you never could, and they're often using cheap substitutes whenever they can. So you can't really compete with that. But it brings back the specialness of the treats, of the desserts, of junk food. Even junk food can become special and be loved again while you're on OMAD. It's been like that with my regular food. I've fallen in love with regular food again, but in a healthy way. And it's the same thing with junk food. I can have my sweets, but in a more responsible way. And I look forward to, okay, it's the weekend. What are we going to make? What are we going to do? And we plan it out, and we really think, geez, what are we really craving? And sometimes it changes at the last minute, but oftentimes we really look forward to doing this. And so it's becoming a tradition that hopefully we can keep up for a very long time. And in the process of doing so, that's where you develop these set family recipes and different ways and traditions of making things special and connecting with your family. And I'll bet you didn't think that junk food had the power to do that. Well, it does. But the junk food that you get in the store oftentimes by the time you get it home and you start eating it, especially after you get used to tasting some of the things that you make from scratch, you'll try the processed food again, and you go, ah, this is just terrible. It has no taste to it at all. There's no richness in it. And you'll naturally start to cut back on all of that processed junk. Now, I realize doing things like making your own ice cream or making your own bread might be beyond the scope of some of you at home, and that's okay too. But I really do hope that today's video about junk food and how I apply it on my OMAD has helped you out and is giving you something to think about. Because one thing I want to do on this channel is encourage you to get back into your own kitchen at home and make some of your own food, enjoy the process, and you can control what you're eating and what you're buying and what's going into your body. Because after all, this is what it's all about with OMAD, is choice and bringing that power back to you. These foods don't have power over you. They don't have control over you. You have the control over them. So remember that. And so that is my spiel on junk food. I hope it was helpful for you. Let me know in the comment section or email me what some of your favorite junk foods are. If you guys do any baking at home or any cooking, anything like that, I'd love to hear your stories. Or if you have any suggestions or questions, please let me know. Email me, leave a comment below. I hope you're having a great week, and I hope you're having a very happy OMAD today. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.